Welcome to Make More Marbles. My name is Brad Hart, and we're here to interview the game changers, the future makers, the co-collaborators and creators who are here to collaborate with one another towards a better future for all of us. Enjoy the show. We've got a great guest coming up for you right now. Welcome to Make More Marbles. My name is Brad Hart, and today I have Mat Shaffer on the show. What's up, Matt?
What's going on, Brad? So good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you. I haven't seen you in a little bit, and last time we actually did a web thing that I was on your show. That was fun.
I love the role reversal. This is super fun. Yeah. I'm excited to hear it.
Well, let's jump right in. So for the people at home, Matt, who the hell are you? What do you do in the world? How are you helping all the people?
Oh my God, man. That's a huge question. I mean, I feel my purpose is to share my journey and share what I'm learning on my own path as a light worker with the world, and doing that through as many channels as possible, man. As a coach, I do coaching for individuals that are looking to create change in their life and dramatic change and tap into their purpose and whatever that looks like. I love supporting people on that journey. I'm also a very passionate public speaker. I love to speak at businesses, organizations, high schools. I did that recently. That was amazing. And really bringing personal development and emotional intelligence and all these profound concepts that I don't think get talked about enough out in the world. I really feel it's a responsibility of mine to bring that and to convey that to people that need to hear it, which is everybody in my opinion. And then I produce a podcast and do some other work as well. So yeah, I do a lot of things, but it's all focused around providing value and creating change for people in their lives in a positive, expansive way, you know?
I love that, Matt. Yeah, and I think it's really important. Like, I know for myself, I'm not a fire starter. I'm a gasoline thrower, right? If somebody comes to me and they got a fire lit, like let's say they worked with somebody like you and they really understand what they're here to do and why that's important to them, and they've got any of the blocks and emotional stuff. I was actually having a dinner with Peter Scott last night. You know, Peter.
Yeah.
Who's another coach in the industry. And he's, I love Peter. He's got some great quotes like, fear that's rational keeps you alive, but fear that's irrational keeps you from living. And, Peter's been mentored by Sean Stevenson, a lot of other really great inspirers. And I don't know that I have those skills. And he was talking about how he just got his NLP master prac, and he has this now ability to take people with, emotional traumas and stuff that's kind of holding them back, different limiting patterns, and to shift that stuff in a very short amount of time, which is what Tony Robbins is able to do. And I've always envied that. And I really think, the more I hear about it, the more I talk to people like you, I'm like, wow, I really wish I had that skill set. Can you talk about some of your own training, some of your own things that you've studied? I know you've done ALA and a bunch of other things that have really allowed you to step into this role and help people make those transformative shifts.
Yeah, that's a great question, man. And I really think so much of it begins, and I don't think a lot of people give this enough credit, is the spectrum of your life experience is the single greatest point of connection that you have with the people that you want to serve. So for me, I am blessed to have gone through a pretty vast life experience by the age of 35. You can relate to that, Brad. You've done a lot of amazing things in your life, and you're pretty young too. But I've been. Yeah, I was gonna say Doogie Howser in the house, but
that's another fun story. I met him, by the way. Anyway, go on.
I bet you, dude. I'm sure you have a story. This guy's got a story for everything. I mean, bartender in New York during the stock market boom. I'm sure he's got plenty of stories just from that alone. But I mean, I have been an attorney, a trial attorney in criminal defense. I've owned a restaurant. I did a little stint as a drug addict for a little while during the restaurant.
Whoopsie.
Well, every now and again, you gotta.
It's not all sunshine and roses, guys. I like people who are willing to share their story and their strengths and their struggles. It's really important, right?
And with every experience that I've had, and then redeeming myself from that, pulling myself out of that dependency, that opiate dependency by myself, and then having a spiritual awakening, and then discovering personal development and emotional intelligence, and really using everything that I've experienced in my life framed within personal development and emotional intelligence. That's what allows me to serve as many people as I can. Like, each pain point, each experience that I have is a connection point, and then once I have that connection point, then I use the tools that I've mastered as a coach for Ascension Leadership Academy, a volunteer coach working with hundreds of people and with my clients in private practice. And as a speaker, like I leverage my experiences to connect, because we connect through storytelling, right? I got a lot of stories. I got a lot of experiences. And that's the point at which, because the people, if you don't connect with people, it doesn't matter if you have the best tools in the industry, people aren't going to care. They're just not going to care. They're not going to be listening or be receptive to what you're trying to share with them.
Well, and I think also through story, we can connect, but also the idea of, if you just list a bunch of your successes, people might respect that, but it's going to go over their head because not everybody can relate to success. But everybody can relate to the failures because everybody's failed at some point in their life, So it's in sharing not just, your professional background, but your private personal struggles. I think that people really connect with you and feel like they can trust you at the end of the day to take them from A to B in their own life, provided it's the right fit. And I'm not going to stand here and say everybody's right for everybody, but when you're working with somebody, you have to have that intimacy. If it's not just a transaction, hey, I'm going to do X for Y, if there's something that's like, hey, I'm going to share my deepest, darkest secrets with you. I need to know that you've gone through some similar.
Absolutely. Yeah. It creates a space. Vulnerability creates a space for others to be vulnerable. And it also fosters trust because people want to know that you're willing to go all the way, because relationships, personal, professional, whatever, it's never 50-50. It's 100-100 if you want it to work. Like a 50-50 like romantic relationship is a divorce. Because nobody's going all in on it. And I think a coaching relationship or a professional relationship, it has a similar sort of intimacy and a similar sort of commitment. If both people aren't willing to go all the way, then, neither person is committed to creating results, the results that I want. And I'm committed out of my mind to every client, but, it's up to them to be willing to go all the way too. And trust.
Absolutely. And one of the things I've noticed too is that anybody can wake up one day and say, hey, I'm going to be a life coach. Oh, I have a fun saying, it's like, you have to have a life first, I think, to really be able to take somebody from A to B, right? If you haven't gone from A to B in your own life and whatever you're working on, how do you expect to get anybody else there? And not just that, like knowing that path is one thing. So you know what to look out for and what people are struggling with and what mindsets or frameworks or habits they might have that are keeping them from getting from A to B, but also then having the tools to change. And that's kind of where I'm at with my own journey, is like understanding that even if I very much desire to want to take somebody from A to B, if I don't have the skill or the tools to drill down into what's going to keep them from taking action, I can tell them what to do all day long, and it's going to go in one ear and out the other. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Have you found this as well working with people? Like you just give them the tools. You say, hey, listen, I know you need to do X, Y, and Z. I've been there before. I know exactly what to do. And then crickets. And then a month goes by and you're like, all right, did you do X, Y, and Z? And nothing happens. And it's so frustrating because some people just seem to take off from the get. They're hungry, they're focused, they have their what and their why are really clear. You give them the how and they go crazy.
Yeah.
And then others just kind of languish. And what do you think the reason is for that?
I mean, I think it comes down to, like you said, being really clear about your what and your why. Like, why did you hire a coach? What do you want to create in your life? And if your what and your why don't light you up, like if it's not something where you're like, I am willing to do whatever it takes to create X, like if you're not that fired up about it, then you're probably not going to do it, because human beings tend to be ambivalent. They tend to want to stay in their comfort zones. They tend to not be necessarily very motivated. And we're also so distracted because there's a million different stimuli assaulting us at all times. So it's like, unless you have that clarity and that fire around it, then it's like, like, did you just hire a life coach because like 3 of your friends hired life coaches and you wanted to be like them? Because like the first step I ask anybody that I'm working with is like, what do you want to create? And if they're like, I don't know, then I'm like, okay, well, before we do anything, we get to get you clear on that. Because if you do not know what you want and it does not excite you out of your pants, then like, there's no point in us working together,
Yeah, there might be this kind of dull pain or throbbing of like, I know I'm not living up to my potential, but I'm not even sure what that is. And my best cure for that in my own life has been to just aggressively try things and fail and like literally take, loss after loss after loss on the chin. So not only do I know what I want to do, and I'm really clear on that now after, 20 years of figuring it out, but I know what I don't want to do, more importantly, right? I don't want to work for anybody else. I don't want to sit in a cubicle. I don't want to be constrained, time, freedom, energy, attention, whatever. Although I understand that there's paradoxes and dichotomies there as well, right? You really need to be able to understand, like, to get everything you want in life, you have to be able to find what values will line up with that. And if your values are in conflict, it's over, man.
It'll never work. And that was the workshop I did at this at this high school. My buddy's a high school chemistry teacher, and so I did a workshop for his classes, 120 kids, on vision, values, and goals. Like, what is your vision? What are the values that you've created to support that vision? And what goals are you going to begin and to initiate now in order to move you towards that? And I mean, these kids were like mind blown, and they're sophomores and juniors in high school. They had never asked themselves, what are my values? Because your values create that filter, right? That filter that you get to run all your decisions, because we have choice points every day, hundreds of them. And so it's like you get to check in with yourself over and over and over again. What are my 5 core values or my 3 core values? And which choice aligns with all of them? And those are the guideposts that you use to make decisions. And so I had these kids, we did a process. We came to create their value statements, like their 5 positive value statements. And then they wrote them on a card. And I'm like, stick that in your locker, have it in your folder, and read it 1,000 times until it's just internalized. And then that's your filter for every single decision that you make. And I feel like so many people, they really have no idea what their values are. And they're just adapting to every situation based upon what feels good and saying it's like your intuition or something. And I think that's the slippery slope of the cosmic new age world that, I mean, we both live in. You're in North County and I'm an OB, and I do work in the spiritual community. And it's like, it is one thing to follow your intuition. It's another thing to just be doing what feels good all the time and then saying it's your intuition. That can be a cop out.
Right. And I don't want to beat up on any spiritual practice or anything like that. I think there's definitely something to following your gut. I do. But
absolutely,
understanding that human beings make emotional decisions and then back them up with logic, because that's what we think, right? That's what's kept us alive and surviving in a world that was very dangerous, right? It was like, you didn't have time to say, oh, well, should I jump out of this lion's way as it, comes to maul me and take me down? Yeah, you should probably do that, right? So follow your gut and your instincts at that point. But now that we live in this relatively safe world with an abundance of choice, actually, it's like a paradox of choice. There's so many choices that we're ultimately going to be dissatisfied with most of the things that we consider too many of, right? There's a great book by Dr. Barry Schwartz about that, where he recommends you only look at 3 options on any given thing. And then you use your values as a filter set, use referrals and recommendations as a filter set. What does your tribe know, And those things allow you to move forward and not worrying about any outcome of any one decision, but making multiple decisions. So, as you walk through the world and you think, okay, cool, I've got my gut, it needs to be honed. I need to get feedback from it and learn to trust it and learn to make sure that I'm using my gut in the way it was intended, to process a lot of data at once, take 10,000 data points and say, okay, I got a good feeling about this, or I got a bad feeling about this, and be able to trust that. And also using your logical brain after the fact to kind of work with each other to say, okay, was that me acting in fear? Was I truly present? Was I truly articulating my deepest needs, wants, and desires? And was I filtering it through that set of values? Because ultimately there's no right or wrong there. It's not a judgment of values. It's just, what do you want? And what are the values that are going to create that versus something else?
Exactly. Yeah. It's a balancing act. And I couldn't agree.
Say you want freedom, family, health, finances, and all your value sets are, procrastination, worry, doubt, not being willing to put in the work, right? Not being willing to figure it out. You just want people to show up and hand you bags of money without adding value for it. There's a scientific law in the universe. It's called the law of affluence and abundance. It's like, if you don't give anything, you're not to expect to receive anything. And that's a consistent back and forth that you got to play. And money is a way we keep track of that, but it's not a perfect system, certainly. And it will continue to get better and better over time. But, there's a piece that most people miss, is like, you don't get anything for nothing. Everything that you put out there comes back in some way, shape, or form, but not always the way you intended.
Absolutely. That's beautifully put, man. And I truly believe that it is a balancing act of, using, like, harnessing your intuition and anchoring it within your values, within your vision, and being able to distinguish your intuition from your ego, right? And your emotional, and like these emotional things that are just coming up for you all the time. Because I think it can get a little fuzzy, especially if you haven't done a lot of inner work on what's my intuition and what's my just egoic motivation based upon feelings that I'm having right now. Or maybe I'm getting triggered by something and I'm saying, oh, this is my intuition telling me to do that. And I'm like, no, it's because your dad yelled at you when you were 7. And whatever the situation is activating this in you. So I think there's like a dance of being able to distinguish between those two things. And that's why personal development, the earlier you get clear on it, like, and the more work you do, the better you're able to like be self-aware on these different things that are coming up for you in any given situation.
And then you can kind of take that signal out of the noise and say, all right, these are the things that consistently show up. Because, life tends to whisper, and then it and then it hits you with trucks full of bricks. And I have a story about that too. But I just want to give a shout out to everybody on the Make More Marbles podcast live today. We got Mr. Nelson Cabasa, my mentor from New York, actually taught me everything I knew about real estate. Thank you, Nelson. Chris, Cheryl, Angela, beautiful lady. Thank you so much for being on here. Naomi, thank you guys for showing up and watching us live. Tyler, everybody. We appreciate you so much. And if you have questions, pop them in the comments. We'll get to them for sure. So yeah, we are in San Diego, to answer your question, Chris. Yeah. So Matt, if people want to understand better, how to get these tools under their belt, right? I've done a lot of Landmark, Tony Robbins. I know you've done ALA. What are some of the ones you recommend that you've gone down the rabbit hole on? What are some of the things you want to continue to do in your own personal development journey? And yeah, let's go with that and we'll see where that takes us.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think obviously for starters, Ascension Leadership Academy, if you have never done emotional intelligence work before, even if you've never done personal development before, it gives you a great foundation because it's a 4-month program where you really get to do small group work, which is extremely powerful. Like if you're doing this work, it's like tennis. You can hit against the wall, but it works a lot better when you have a partner, when you have a dynamic situation and a connection to other humans. So, and one way to do that is through group work like ALA. So ALA, great place to start. I'm sure we can put a link in somewhere for people to connect, alasandiego.com. And it was transformative for me. Yeah, Jenna Ballard right there. Boom.
Yeah, Jenna and Brad are beautiful humans. I saw them at a Good On You not too long ago.
True ultimate light workers. Jenna and Brad, shout out. I love you guys. And you fundamentally changed my life. And so I rep ALA all day, every day, because it was transformative for me. And so another way to do this personal development work is to hire a coach, like have somebody there that you can begin your own personalized process with, especially if you've already done some work. It's a great place to start, continue the journey, is to have a coach in your own life and to work with them to help you create results. And I mean, for me, the books, some like basic books that I always recommend to my clients or to anybody who's interested in getting started in personal development, the new Psycho-Cybernetics, top of the list. For me personally, I think it's like the OG secret. It's like the granddaddy of, it's the only book more granddaddy than the new Psycho-Cybernetics is Think and Grow Rich and the Napoleon Hill stuff. But this is like similarly, it's from the 60s. This guy wrote this book, and it really is a beautiful book about cultivating self-awareness of your mind and your thoughts, reprogramming your mind, visualization. I mean, it has so many beautiful tools. It's such a great practical book to help you rewire your mind. And it saved my life. It was the first book I ever read in personal development. It was recommended to me in a mastermind that I joined. And that book saved me from a very, 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 very toxic thought pattern that I had gotten into as my restaurant was failing. Like I was in a state of my life is over. I blew it. I'm 31. I'm bankrupt. I truly was in a space. And that series of thoughts went through my head 1,000 times a day. I couldn't even be alone in a room. I had to have a TV or music or something playing because I couldn't be alone with my own head. And
Think and Grow Dead. That's what that pattern is.
Yeah, exactly.
We become whatever we think about most of the day.
Yeah.
Because everything you guys got to understand is such a powerful thing we have between our ears is our mind is allowing reality to come out of it. But if your reality is, creating hell essentially for yourself and everybody around you, it's going to keep showing up and keep showing up and keep showing up. And it's just a record. It's just a record that you've dug the grooves in so far. You got to scratch that record and start over again. And this is some of the ways to give the tools to do that.
Exactly. And so it's like, and what Psycho-Cybernetics got me to do was start to watch the thinker, watch the thinker and really like every time one of these fallacious, like ridiculous fallacy thoughts was coming through my head, to stop it, acknowledge it as being fundamentally not true, and then say the antonym of it, say the opposite of it, and then just gradually reprogram my mind. And it took thousands of times. I mean, it took like many months of doing this because those neural pathways had gotten grooved so deep. But it was really, once I did it, I mean, it was the first step towards getting out of the mental and emotional hole that I had dug for myself over the 10 years of chasing my ego and chasing money and making, self-destructive decisions along the way. The first step was stopping the negative record from playing in here. And then that was the first step of getting myself out. you know. And then I guess other books would be The Way of the Superior Man, as far as giving you a primer on the masculine and feminine. Holy crap. You want to understand why every relationship in your life has or has not worked? Read that book and then like journal about your relationships and start to like look at your relationships. And it all comes down to the energy that you have.
Something I've been noticing in my own life is that as I continue to work and do things and get out in the world, and, you know, some things are working, some things aren't working. Every once in a while, I have to have like a little serious brush fire in my life where it's like, okay, all this stuff that I've been planting, some of it's working great. Let's cultivate that. But there's a lot of just stuff that's not working. And you have to have that kind of controlled fire and get rid of it all. And I think having a coach, no matter what level you're at, having a mentor, no matter what level you're at, you know, it comes back to, I forget who told me this originally, but it's been around, is having 30% of your time dedicated to people you can help who are not at your level yet, 33% of your time spent with people at your level, so peer group, and then 33% of your time ideally spent with people above your level. And you have to pay those people, you have to fly to those people, you have to get in the rooms with those people, you have to beg, borrow, steal, you have to get a podcast together, whatever you're going to do, right? Just get in front of those people so that they can remind you that what you're going through is that big a deal. And then remind yourself, like the stuff that I was dealing with that would throw me for a loop for days 5 years ago, I deal with 6 times a day now, and it's not even a big deal. And I got systems around it. You know, it's like, you know, always levels, always progress. I always like to remind myself, Brad, my roommate, and I, we have this saying, levels, Jerry, levels. Always levels. levels, Jerry. Levels.
I love it. Yeah.
So, Matt, if you could give people maybe a couple little tools that you have used, maybe step 1, 2, 3 for limiting thoughts, belief patterns, you know, cultivating awareness, whatever you think would be the most helpful for people right now. It's just kind of a, you know, a good on you for jumping in here today, and for people who are going to see this on Facebook and in the days and years to come. What are some of the things that have been the most transformative and simple that people could implement right now?
Yeah, I mean, well, the first thing that I did in my own process, and I started to go into it a little bit, was, and I do this with a lot of my clients, is to really, because these limiting beliefs, a lot of them are based around fear and around shame. And Brene Brown talks about how shame grows in the dark. Fear grows in the dark. When we don't expose this stuff to the light of our awareness, it just festers and multiplies, and it becomes stronger and stronger. So the first step is to figure out, like, what are your beliefs? And how are they imprisoning you? Like I like to say, we live in an invisible belief box. We have these walls that we've constructed all around us. So figure out where the walls are. Write down all of your beliefs, both positive and negative, but particularly the negative ones. And sometimes they're not going to come up when you try to think about them. That's the tricky part, is that, you know, because they're like cockroaches. When you look, they're going to scatter. Right. So they go off in all directions. So kind of wait for yourself to get, not wait, but just be conscious that you're looking to write down your limiting beliefs. And then when you get triggered, when something happens and you feel yourself start to come, write down what that thought is, what that feeling is. And for a couple days or a week, or however long, every time something comes up on your phone or wherever you want to put it, write it down. And then by the end of that week, or however long you want to do it, you'll have a list of all these crazy things that have been rattling around in your brain on a daily basis often. And the more times that you've repeated them, like further emphasize those, like bold those ones, right? That if you're thinking about the same thing 5-10 times a day, like those are the heavy hitters, the ones that you really want to work on. And then underneath each one of those, once you have them all mapped out, write the truth or a constructive reframe for that thought. You know, like my thought was, one of my biggest, hairiest gorillas on my back was that I was 31, I have 200 grand in debt, a failed restaurant, and I'm done. I'm going to be buried in debt, and I'm going to be a failure for the rest of my life. That was literally my conviction that would go through my head 1,000 times a day. And so the opposite of that, as I wrote that out, the opposite was, I'm a well-educated, 31-year-old dynamic man with infinite possibilities ahead of me. And no amount of debt is limiting that or controlling that. Like I have control of my own destiny.
Also, money's not real.
And also money is a fallacy. Exactly. Yeah.
It's a construction, right? It's a scorekeeping mechanism that we use in society to track whatever we track, mostly debt slavery. But hey,
no, trust me, the new feudalism is real, and that's a whole different podcast. And
seriously, it's just wild how many people live under that story though, and it needs to shift. And that's why I'm so huge on crypto and blockchain. I just think it's a better system that serves more people, and they can fight it all they want. They can kick and scream, but guess what? Bankers, guess what? Everybody, credit card companies, all of them.
Yeah.
Blockchain's a better system. Get on board.
Trust me, man. The social conditioning that we face in our society is terrifying. And as I've woken up level by level by level, I get more and more committed to sharing this with other people. You know, so you write down the beliefs that aren't serving you, and then the constructive reframe underneath it. And then every time one of those thoughts comes up, it's like a record, like you just stop the record.
How much momentum can it gain in a 3-dimensional space versus a 2-dimensional prison, which is a piece of paper?
Yeah. Exactly.
I like to put it like it's bouncing around in my head. It's doing that ping pong ball thing. If I could just get it in a 2-dimensional prison, there it is. I can look at it. It doesn't exist in my head anymore. It exists on this piece of paper. And then I can say, well, that's bullshit. What's actually the truth? Let me write that down. And then frame that.
And then you just loop that. And you have to understand that you might have years of having this dialogue running in your head in a certain way. So the neural pathways for these things can be very deep. So you might have to tell yourself
so many times. Yeah.
So it might take you a month or 2 months or 3 months. It took me 6 months for some of these to completely release, but it did over time. It started to reduce its hold and then eventually it let go. But I mean, if you can do that, if you can just get aware of your beliefs and just start reframing them in a positive way, like that'll fundamentally begin a transformation that you can't even anticipate where it's going to go. Like it's a really powerful process, and it saved my life without question.
Well, Matt, thank you so much for sharing all that. And I think that'll be really helpful to some people that are just starting on their personal development journey. I get all kinds that come and check these videos out. So if you're watching at home, try this out for a week, see how it makes you feel. And Matt, I want to ask you a question that I ask everybody on the Make More Marvels podcast, but I don't ever tell them beforehand, is thank you, first of all, for sharing yourself and your gifts with us and your story. I know it was a little bit more of a compressed time frame today, but what are some of the ways we can help you back, right? What are some of the ways that we can connect you to the resources, the opportunities, the people, and the systems that you need to move your mission forward faster?
Well, I mean, if you would like to get more of what I'm doing and what I'm up to, please check out I have 2 Facebook shows, 2 Facebook lives that I do. Mondays with Matt. I've been doing it for over a year now, every week. I'm very passionate about it. It has become a vehicle for me.
And really Bosco.
In the world. Huh?
And Bosco.
And Bosco's there too, by the way, just in case no show of any kind would be complete without Bosco. But yeah, so Mondays with Matt, me and Bosco from 7 to roughly 8. We talk about personal development, emotional intelligence, all this beautiful stuff. And it's an interactive co-creative dialogue. It isn't just me talking at you. We create a show together and we create breakthroughs together. So that I'm very passionate about. And then I do a show on Wednesdays with a love coach, Rebecca Boatman, called Wasabi Wednesday.
I love Rebecca Boatman.
Me and Rebecca, man.
You guys are doing that. That's awesome.
Check it out. She's a human, literally a human ray of light, and one of my dear friends. And we do a show on love, relationships, and exploring dating and all that stuff. Wasabi Wednesday is the spicy truth about all those topics. So it's a lot of fun, man. And
guys, you crazy kids. I love it.
It's a lot of fun. And then obviously, like I am always looking for people that are ready to take their life to a whole new level. So anybody who is interested in coaching or wants to explore what that even is or what that looks like, feel free to reach out to me, and we can set up a time to talk about it. Because I mean,
what's the best way to ping you, Matt? Do you have an email or Facebook or?
Yeah. We'll put a link on here. You can always reach me at matt@mattshaffer.com, matt@matshaffer.com. And we'll put a link to my Facebook in the post as well, so that you guys can check that out.
Right on, guys. And thank you so much, Matt, for being here. We really appreciate you. Any parting words of wisdom for the Facebook audience, for the podcast listeners? By the way, guys, sometimes we do these live. Sometimes they're on iTunes. Actually, all the time they're on iTunes. You can check out makemoremarvels.com for more podcasts. Leave a review if you love what you've heard. If you don't love what you've heard, leave a review anyway. I'd love to hear about it. And yeah, let's keep it rolling.
Yeah, if I have a final thought, and this is something that once I pulled myself out of the doldrums of where I was at, and I've continued to move in a positive direction, and I've been letting go of more and more layers of what I believed and what I expected for my life. I've stepped into a space of, this is my mantra, that everything is possible all of the time. And if we just surrender to what is and to what's being created for us, rather than trying to control everything and force it through a certain way, magic will happen in your life that you cannot fathom. is available for you, because our perception is often this tiny little spectrum of things. Like we think our options are 1, 2, and 3, when in reality, they're freaking infinite. They're infinite. And so who are we to be audacious enough to think that we necessarily know what's supposed to happen to us and when it's supposed to happen? Like, what if there's a larger cosmic order that is happening and that we're a part of that, and we get to honor that by being present and being connected and being self-aware and setting intentions, but not setting goals that if we don't achieve these goals, our life's a failure, or achieving goals at the expense of other people. Like, that isn't the way life gets to work. And so I guess that act of surrendering has been something that I've really stepped into in the last 6 months, and my life has changed fundamentally for it.
You just triggered something I read this morning, actually, which is coming through again, is Forrest Landry. If you haven't heard of him, check him out. He's got some amazing stuff going on. I was reading his book, The Effective Choice. And one of the aphorisms in that book is that learning is organized attention, but wisdom is organized intention. Yes. I really love that. That was great. So let's end on that. Matt, thank you so much for being on the show. You can reach out to Matt on Facebook. There'll be links below this video. You can also reach out to Matt at matshaffer.com. That's MAT at SHAFFER.com.
Matt at matshaffer.com. Yeah. Or just go to matshaffer.com.
matshaffer.com. You guys are rock stars. Appreciate you. Thank you so much, Facebook Live audience, for being live on Facebook with us, and all the Make More Marbles and marble makers out there. I appreciate you. I love you. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Thanks so much for listening to the Make More Marbles podcast. For more tips, hacks, and strategies to create an amazing, abundant life in your health, wealth, and relationships, whatever that means to you, head on over to makemoremarbles.com. Check out our cool explainer video about what we're about, and join our community of entrepreneurial game changers. We want to help you level up your life in every possible way. And don't forget to subscribe to us on iTunes, Stitcher, or Google Play, wherever you listen to your podcasts, and please do leave a review. Thank you so much, and we'll see you on the next podcast.